While you've got the ground opened up, I bought these experimental soil nutrient sensors. Wireless things, supposed to monitor moisture and pH. Could you just pop these 6 little plastic things in the ground for me while you're aerating? Right under the sod along the path? I held up one of my completed, powder-filled, but sealed devices, hoping it looked vaguely sensor-like. Mike picked one up, turned it over. Huh. Nutrient sensor, eh? Looks kinda like… I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure, easy enough to bury 'em while we aerate. Weird spot for sensors, though. Yeah, well, I shrugged. Experimental. Karen lives 2 doors down, but the sidewalk takes a slight curve. Cutting diagonally across the corner of my front lawn shaves approximately 4.7 seconds off her journey to the mailbox, or wherever else she's power walking off to in her Lululemon gear. 4.7 seconds. Apparently, this time saving was worth trampling the delicate ecosystem of my fescue blend and occasionally flattening the pansies I optimistically planted near the walkway each spring. At first, I figured she just didn't realize. Our neighborhood, Pleasant View Heights, the irony is not lost on me, doesn't have fences in the front yards, just polite stretches of grass demarcating personal space. So the first few times I saw her striding across my lawn like she was conquering new territory, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. The first time I spoke up, it was peak politeness, caught her mid-stride halfway between my oak tree and the aforementioned pansies. Hey Karen, I ventured, trying for a friendly neighbor vibe. Mind maybe sticking to the sidewalk? Trying to get the grass to grow in that corner? She gave me a blank look, as if the concept of not walking wherever she pleased was utterly foreign. Oh, Walter, don't be silly. It's just grass. It's much faster this way. And she continued on her merry, lawn-compressing way. Okay. Politeness failed. Time for phase 2. Visual deterrence. I bought one of those polite little "Please keep off grass" signs, the kind with the friendly cartoon gnome on it. Planted it right in the middle of her preferred shortcut. The next day, the sign was gone. Not broken, not vandalized, just gone. Vanished. I later saw it peeking out from under a pile of leaves in her yard waste bin. Accidental? I think not. Phase 3. Physical barriers, sort of. I bought some of that low decorative wire border fencing, about a foot high, and installed it along the edge of the lawn she cut across. It looked kind of tacky, frankly, but I was getting desperate. The next afternoon, I watched from my window as Karen approached, saw the tiny fence, paused for approximately half a second, then carefully, deliberately, lifted one Lululemon-clad leg high over the wire and continued on her path, stepping neatly between my surviving pansies. She didn't even break stride. The fence was less a deterrent, more a minor gymnastic challenge she apparently relished. Phase 4. Official channels. I complained to the HOA, sent them photos of the path worn into my lawn, explained my failed attempts at diplomacy and gnome-based signage. Their response? A masterpiece of bureaucratic buck-passing. Dear Mr. Schmidt, the form letter read, thank you for bringing your concerns to our attention. The Pleasant View Heights HOA encourages neighborly communication to resolve property line disputes. While we remind all residents to respect private property, the association does not actively police pedestrian pathways unless significant property damage is documented. We suggest discussing the matter further with your neighbor. Discuss it further? I'd be better off discussing quantum physics with my toaster. I even considered calling the police non-emergency line once, just to ask about trespassing. The dispatcher was polite, but firm. Sir, unless she's causing damage, refusing to leave when you ask her while she's on the property, or there's a no trespassing order in place, it's generally a civil matter. We can't station an officer there to watch your lawn. So there I was. Polite requests ignored. Signs vanished. Fences hurdled. HOA useless. police powerless. Karen continued her daily diagonal march across my lawn with impunity, sometimes even waving cheerfully if she saw me watching, as if daring me to do something about it. My grass was developing a permanent cow path. My pansies had given up the ghost, and my simmering resentment was reaching boiling point. My buddy Dave, over beers one night, offered his usual brand of helpful advice. "Dude, just get a dog," he suggested. "A big one. Let him greet Karen next time she cuts across." Tempting, I admitted. But knowing my luck, I'd get fined by the HOA for having an intimidating animal or something. Okay, Dave mused. Motion-activated sprinkler? Tried it, I sighed. She complained to the HOA about me getting her wet on my property. They sent me a warning about water nuisance. Unbelievable. Dave shook his head. All right, think outside the box. What startles people but doesn't actually hurt them? A loud noise? She'd just call the cops for disturbing the peace. A bad smell? HOA violation for sure. Something messy? I ventured, thinking about Fifi, the mud dog from that other story I definitely don't remember. Dave's eyes lit up. Messy, yeah, like, what if every time she stepped on your lawn, she got slimed, like on those old Nickelodeon shows? Slime might be hard to implement, I mused, and probably violate 17 environmental regulations, but messy, startling, harmless? The gears started turning. What about color? Color. Bright, obnoxious, impossible to ignore color. The kind they use in those color run things or the holy festivals. Powdered, non-toxic, biodegradable cornstarch dyed in hues that would make a unicorn jealous. What if Karen's shortcut suddenly became a rainbow gauntlet? The idea took root and blossomed with terrifying speed. Forget slime, forget noise. A sudden, unexpected explosion of color. It wouldn't hurt her, not physically, but it would definitely startle her. It would definitely mark her literally as a trespasser. And the sheer mess involved in getting neon pink powder off white sneakers? That might just be inconvenient enough to make her reconsider her route. This wasn't about causing harm. It was about creating a consequence. A harmless, washable, but deeply annoying consequence. I needed booby traps. Harmless booby traps. Powder mines. My late-night internet searches shifted from how to get grass stains off sidewalks to DIY pressure plate trigger mechanism, non-toxic bulk color powder, and simple pneumatic puff device. I felt like a suburban Wile E. Coyote, plotting the downfall of my own personal roadrunner, though Karen was significantly less speedy and much more annoying. I ruled out anything complex or potentially dangerous. No explosives, obviously. No projectiles that could hit her in the eye. No liquids that could stain permanently. It had to be simple, reliable, and undeniably harmless, except to Karen's dignity and dry cleaning bill. I settled on a design. A small, shallow plastic container buried just beneath the sod. Inside, a generous scoop of brightly colored holy powder. On top of the container, resting just below the grass roots, a simple pressure plate made from thin wood or sturdy plastic. Connected to the pressure plate, a simple mechanical trigger, maybe a spring-loaded lever arm, or even better, a small disposable CO2 cartridge, like for inflating bike tires, rigged with a pin valve. When Karen stepped on the hidden pressure plate, it would depress the trigger, releasing the spring or piercing the CO2 cartridge, creating a sudden puff of compressed air inside the container, forcing the powder upwards in a localized, startling cloud around her foot and lower leg. Simple, effective, non-lethal, gloriously messy. Procurement was surprisingly easy. Bulk holy powder in eye-searing shades of pink, Blue, green, orange, and yellow was readily available online, advertised as non-toxic, eco-friendly, and skin-safe, cornstarch and food-grade dyes. Small CO2 cartridges were cheap. The pressure plates and trigger mechanisms required some basic tinkering in my garage, involving springs, small hinges, plastic tubing, and maybe a bit of duct tape. I felt like MacGyver if MacGyver's mission was passive-aggressive lawn defense. I built 6 identical devices, each loaded with a different vibrant color, my little rainbow coalition of annoyance. Now for the installation. This was the tricky part. I needed to bury them along Karen's well-worn shortcut path without making it obvious the lawn had been disturbed. Doing it myself under cover of darkness seemed like the best bet. Less chance of witnesses or awkward questions. However, fate intervened in the form of Mudslide Mike, the landscaping guy who had delivered the mountain of dirt for my other neighbors. Previous landscaping project. Again, different story. I saw his truck down the street doing some legitimate work. An idea sparked plausible deniability via contractor. "Hey, Mike," I called out, wandering over casually. "Got a weird question for you." Mike looked up from his wheelbarrow, wiping sweat. "Hey, Walt, shoot. After that last job you called me about," referring to the mud pit story I definitely don't remember. "Nothing sounds weird anymore." "Great," I said. "So I'm having some, soil compaction issues along this specific path here." I pointed towards Karen's shortcut. "Was wondering if you could do some deep core aeration just along this strip, really loosen things up?" Mike squinted at the path. "Aeration? Sure, looks fine to me, but okay." "And," I added, trying to sound nonchalant, "while you've got the ground opened up, I bought these experimental soil nutrient sensors, wireless things, supposed to monitor moisture and pH. Could you just pop these 6 little plastic things in the ground for me while you're aerating? Right under the sod, along the path?" I held up one of my completed, powder-filled, but sealed devices, hoping it looked vaguely sensor-like. Mike picked one up, turned it over. "Huh? Nutrient sensor, eh? Looks kinda like, I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure, easy enough to bury 'em while we aerate. Weird spot for sensors, though." "Yeah, well," I shrugged. "Experimental." Mike and his crew did the aeration the next day, and true to his word, carefully buried my 6 nutrient sensors just beneath the surface along Karen's path, replacing the sod neatly on top. Perfect. They looked completely invisible. My rainbow landmines were armed and waiting. All I had to do was sit back, watch, and wait for Karen's regularly scheduled trespass. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I didn't have to wait long. Karen's routine was as predictable as the sunrise, only far more irritating. Around 3:15 p.m. the next day, her front door opened, and out she strode, clad in her usual power-walking attire, visor firmly in place, phone pressed to her ear, already mid-stride towards my lawn. I positioned myself strategically at my living room window, partially hidden by the curtains, heart pounding with a mixture of nervous excitement and gleeful anticipation. This was it. Judgment Day. Or rather, Powder Day. She stepped off the sidewalk, onto the grass, heading diagonally towards the oak tree. Her usual route, completely oblivious. Talking animatedly on her phone. Come on, Karen, I thought. Just a few more steps. Right into the pink zone. Her foot came down, right where Mike's crew had buried the first sensor. Poof! A sudden, startling cloud of brilliant neon pink powder erupted from the grass, engulfing her right ankle and shin in a vibrant haze. Karen stopped dead. Mid-sentence. She looked down, bewildered. What the? I could faintly hear her say into the phone. She stared at her now pink sneaker and calf, confusion warring with annoyance on her face. She probably thought a neighborhood kid had thrown something. She took another step forward, maybe trying to brush the pink dust off, muttering into her phone. Her foot landed squarely on the next trigger point. Poof! This time, electric blue powder exploded upwards, coating her other leg. Now she yelped, jumping back in genuine surprise, dropping her phone onto the grass, hopefully not onto another trigger. "What is going on?" she shrieked, looking around wildly. Oh, this is better than I ever imagined, I thought, stifling a laugh behind the curtain. Go for the trifecta, Karen. Panicked now, she took another hasty step sideways, trying to get off the attacked path. Wrong move. Poof! Lime green. It puffed up beautifully, adding a third distinct color to her previously pristine white leggings. She stood there for a moment, frozen, looking down at her multicolored legs like she'd accidentally wandered onto the set of a particularly aggressive children's art project. Pink, blue, green. She looked like a walking, sputtering Jackson Pollock painting. That's when she spotted me. I'd made the mistake of letting a chuckle escape, and her head snapped towards my window. Her eyes, wide with shock moments before, now narrowed into slits of pure fury. The connection was made. Forgetting her dropped phone, forgetting decorum, forgetting everything except righteous indignation, she stormed towards my front door, leaving faint, multicolored puffs in her wake with every angry step. I quickly composed myself, wiped the grin off my face, mostly, and casually opened the front door just as she reached it, pretending I was just stepping out to check the mail. "Karen!" I exclaimed, feigning wide-eyed shock and concern. "Good heavens, what on earth happened to you? Did you get into a fight with a rainbow?" "Walter Schmidt!" she shrieked, pointing a trembling, powder-dusted finger at me. Her voice was several octaves higher than usual. "You did this! Your lawn! It attacked me!" "Attacked you?" I widened my eyes further. "Karen, lawns don't attack people. Are you feeling okay? That's a lot of color you've got there. Very festive." "Don't you play innocent with me?" she seethed, flecks of blue powder dislodging from her leggings as she vibrated with rage. "I stepped on your grass, and it exploded. Pink, blue, green all over me. You booby-trapped your lawn?" "Booby-trapped?" I gasped, clutching my chest theatrically. "Karen, that's a terrible accusation. Why would I ever do such a thing? Are you sure it wasn't, kids? Maybe playing one of those color run games nearby. The powder blows around, I peered intently at my lawn. Looks perfectly normal to me. Maybe it's a strange type of pollen or a bizarre soil fungus. Some fungi are brightly colored. "Fungus!" she screamed. "This was not fungus, Walter. This was you. I saw you lurking in the window. You deliberately set traps for me." "Karen," I said soothingly, adopting a tone one might use with a hysterical toddler, which probably didn't help. "I assure you I have no idea what you're talking about. But perhaps this is a sign? Maybe the universe is telling you that cutting across private property isn't the best idea. Seems hazardous, wouldn't you say? Maybe stick to the sidewalk. It's much less colorful." I gave her my most innocent, helpful smile. She just stood there, sputtering, momentarily speechless, dusted in neon hues, looking utterly defeated and ridiculous. Finally, she let out one more incoherent shriek of rage, spun around, leaving a faint pink cloud, snatched up her dropped phone, and stormed back towards her house, presumably to call the authorities, the HOA, the CDC, and possibly NATO. I watched her go, then allowed myself a slow, satisfied grin. Operation Color Cloud, successful beyond my wildest dreams. Now for the fallout. The fallout, much like the powder cloud, was immediate, colorful, and spread rapidly. Karen, true to form, apparently spent the next hour on the phone, dialing every number she could think of that might possibly inflict bureaucratic pain upon me. First came the HOA. Brenda, the long-suffering office manager, called me, her voice tight with controlled panic. Walter? Brenda here. Just received a rather frantic call from Karen Dubois. Something about exploding colors? On your lawn? And her person? Exploding colors, Brenda? I feigned confusion. Goodness, no. Karen did stop by earlier, seemed quite agitated, had some sort of powdery substance on her trousers. Very strange. I suggested it might be pollen. Brenda sighed heavily. Walter, she sent pictures. She looks like she wrestled a unicorn and lost. She's demanding immediate action, citing bylaws about nuisances, unapproved landscaping, hazardous materials. Hazardous? I cut in quickly. Brenda, if there was any powder, I assure you it would be nothing more than harmless, non-toxic, biodegradable cornstarch, like they use in those fun runs. Perfectly safe. Unlike, say, trespassing repeatedly on private property. Just expect a violation notice, Walter, Brenda said wearily. Probably several. The notices arrived the next day, a veritable rainbow of infractions. Violation, creation of a public nuisance, airborne particulate matter. Violation, installation of unapproved subsurface landscaping devices. Violation, application of non-approved ground cover, multi-hued powder. Violation, potential environmental contamination via unknown powdered substance. I emailed Brenda the ingredients list for non-toxic holy powder. Violation, failure to maintain lawn in aesthetically uniform condition. And my favorite, violation, installation of prohibited booby traps, hazardous devices. They demanded immediate removal of the devices and professional lawn remediation, threatening fines that started steep and went vertical. Then came the police. Karen had apparently called them immediately after failing to get satisfaction from the HOA, claiming assault. 2 officers arrived at my door, looking profoundly unenthusiastic. Officer Miller, yes, him again, the poor guy must have requested a transfer away from my neighborhood by now, sighed when he saw me. Mr. Schmidt, he began, rubbing his temples. Let me guess. This involves your neighbor, Miss Dubois, and possibly colors? You could say that, officer, I admitted. She trespassed on my lawn again, and apparently encountered some unexpected powder. Right, Officer Miller said. Miss Dubois is alleging you deliberately booby-trapped your lawn to assault her with noxious chemicals. Noxious chemicals? I scoffed. Officer, it's cornstarch and food coloring, like kids play with, and they're not booby traps. They're harmless trespassing deterrents triggered only by direct foot pressure on my private property after numerous warnings to stay off were ignored. I explained the simple mechanism, emphasizing its non-injurious nature. I even offered to carefully dig one up to demonstrate, away from Karen's path, obviously. The officers exchanged a look. Did you warn her you were putting these powder puffers in? The younger officer asked. I warned her repeatedly to stay off my lawn, I countered. The method of deterrence shouldn't matter if she wasn't trespassing. Okay, look, Officer Miller said, clearly wanting this to be over. Technically, what you described doesn't sound like criminal assault. The powder is harmless. The devices aren't inherently dangerous projectiles or explosives. It's weird, really weird, but likely a civil matter. He turned serious. However, sir, rigging any kind of device like this, even harmless, carries risks. What if someone else accidentally steps on it? A child, the mail carrier? What if someone is startled, falls, and gets hurt? Your civil liability could be significant. We strongly advise you remove them. He then turned towards Karen, who was watching intently from her porch. And ma'am, he called out, we've advised you before about trespassing. Continuing to enter Mr. Schmidt's property after being warned could result in a citation. Please use the sidewalk. They left, leaving Karen fuming and me with a warning about liability but no actual charges. The neighborhood, of course, was buzzing. My exploding lawn became the primary topic of gossip. Reactions were mixed. Some thought it was hilarious, and that Karen got what she deserved. Others were horrified, siding with Karen about the danger and eyesore. Kids started daring each other to try and run across my lawn. I quickly put up temporary yard closed for soil treatment signs to prevent accidental powderings. The HOA fines continued to pile up. Karen, perhaps emboldened by the liability warning from the police, sent a letter via her lawyer demanding I pay for the emotional distress and property damage, to her shoes, caused by the powder assault. My lawyer sent back a letter reminding her about trespassing laws and suggesting she invest in washable footwear. It was a colorful Cold War. The Great Powder Standoff lasted for about 2 glorious, stressful, rainbow-hued weeks. During that time, Karen did not set foot on my lawn. Not once. She took wide, exaggerated detours onto the street to avoid even getting close to the property line. Fifi, her dog, was kept on a short leash and seemed to actively pull away from my yard. Victory! The system, however bizarre, actually worked. But the pressure was mounting. The HOA fines were accumulating at an alarming rate. My lawyer advised that while criminal charges were unlikely, Karen could potentially sue me in civil court if she could manufacture some damages, and the HOA could eventually place a lien on my property for the unpaid fines, leading to a long, expensive legal battle over the validity of their bylaws regarding subsurface landscaping devices and aesthetic powder uniformity. The City Code Enforcement Office, while initially baffled, sent a notice requiring me to either get a permit for ground alterations or restore the lawn, citing the potential for the buried devices to interfere with utility line access, a stretch but plausible. And honestly, maintaining the powder mines was becoming a hassle. I had to carefully avoid stepping on them myself. Mowing the lawn was impossible, and the constant low-level anxiety about what if the mail carrier accidentally triggered one, or what if a neighborhood kid did try to run the gauntlet. The police warning about liability echoed in my head. The initial thrill of victory was fading, replaced by the weary reality of ongoing conflict. Maybe the point had been made. So, one quiet evening, under the cloak of darkness, and feeling slightly ridiculous, I went out with a trowel and carefully, meticulously dug up my 6 little powder bombs. Disarmed them, cleaned them out, filled in the small holes. By morning, the lawn looked mostly normal again, perhaps with a few oddly disturbed patches of sod. The rainbow landmines were gone. I sent a polite email to the HOA management office, CCing my lawyer and theirs, stating that the experimental soil nutrient sensors had been removed and the temporary soil discoloration was fading. I made no admission of guilt, offered no apology, but signaled the end of hostilities. The HOA, likely relieved to avoid a costly legal fight over exploding cornstarch, eventually agreed to waive the accumulated fines in exchange for my assurance that no further unapproved subsurface devices would be installed. Karen, seeing the danger had passed, and perhaps warned off by the police mention of trespassing citations, continued to use the sidewalk. A silent, unacknowledged truce settled over Maple Lane. So, what's the takeaway from my colorful crusade? Well, my lawn is back to normal, mostly. My relationship with Karen consists of icy silence and mutual avoidance, which is honestly an improvement. The HOA still sends me notices about the precise angle of my recycling bin, but not about exploding powder. Was it the most mature, sensible way to handle a neighbor cutting across my grass? Absolutely not. It was petty, passive-aggressive, and borderline insane. Did it cost me time, money for supplies and lawyer consultations, and a significant amount of stress? You bet. But did it work? Did it finally, definitively stop Karen from using my lawn as her personal shortcut after all other methods failed? Yes. Yes, it did. Sometimes when reason fails, when rules are ignored, when politeness is met with entitlement, you have to get creative. You have to fight petty with petty, brightly colored, harmless explosions. It might not win you any Good Neighbor awards, but sometimes, just sometimes, it gets the job done. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I see a dandelion popping up. Gotta maintain those community standards, right?